Hello, everyone. Today I'm joined with my very special guest, Ida. How are you doing, Ida?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me.
And during this setup, we were talking about how our spirit guides, or God knows what, is around us, causing a little bit of entertainment in the background with lights and
Yeah,
things.
my kitchen lights have never flickered before, and they were like, shh, going off. And I'm like, why do I have a strobe here? Like, this is not a club setting.
It reminds me, I in November went to have a session with Regina Sharman. I don't know if you know of her. I've interviewed her as well. And whilst I was with her for a couple of hours, the fireplace place kept going on and off. The lights kept going on and off, and the fire alarm kept going on and off for the whole 4 or 5 hours. It was crazy. She's like, "Your twin
Frantic.
flames, higher self is here." I was like, "Something is here for sure."
Like, we might as well just be like, thank you for coming, all. Thank you.
Yes, please aid and assist.
We welcome.
So, yeah, so tell us a bit more about yourself, Ida. Where are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so I also have a day job. So I'm a pharmacist, but I do software design, clinical software design. I started out as a clinical pharmacist, and then I got my master's in leadership, and I do process improvement. So I have like a full on day job, just like you do, I'm sure. And as you were saying, and I'm also an astrologer. So back in 2020, my life fell apart for better or for worse, and I stepped down from my leadership role because I wanted to learn ancient Persian astrology, ancient Vedic astrology. And I did this because as soon as COVID happened, I kind of knew it was cosmic. And I knew that there was some, for lack of a better word, fuckery going on. And
Mm-hmm.
so and I'm like, wait, can I curse on this?
You know what? People have, it's fine. No problem. I don't
Okay.
tend to curse, but it's okay. But sometimes I'm influenced, so it's
Yeah.
fine.
Sorry. I'm really unfiltered most of the time. And so but yeah, so I got into astrology because I just knew there was something wrong, or there was something going on that we didn't quite understand. And I had this just feeling that it was all kind of a play, and that it wasn't normal, or it wasn't as it was before. So I wanted answers, and I wanted answers for my own life because I had had a divorce when I was 33, 34. And I went through like a what they call a wolf stage, where I was dating a lot. At some point I went on 200 first dates in
In
like a 2 year.
Okay,
Like
wow.
I was insane. Like I was really not anchored or feeling like I knew who I was. But then all of that happened well before 2020. And when 2020 came around, I became very spiritual and really seeking guidance and studying ancient astrology as if like it was the air I was breathing. Like it was a total full on obsession. And then I kind of got into that, and I now I do astrology readings, and I also do I do life wave patches. So I sell this photobiomodulation um, patches, and so I try to help people with their health, and I also help with their mental well-being. But a lot of what I do is because I've learned the predictive astrology. I can kind of, especially with the twin flame stuff, I can, if a person is wondering like how long is this going to take, or the timing of everything, the Persian astrology, it's via the sun. It's called Varsha Fall, and it is so predictive. And especially for planning a person's year or knowing when things are going to happen. And I really do feel like if I didn't know how long this was going to take, especially in my twin flame journey or how my life was going to unfold, I'd be losing my mind right now. But instead, I'm kind of like, okay, here are the big milestones. So I'm not stressing being like, is it next month? Is it next? Like, it's just being able to be like, okay, this year, this is what the energies are. Here's how I'm going to maximize my ability to deal with these energies. And that's really what I do for people, because many times it's a huge question mark. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't had a lot of luck, or I'm in this tumultuous relationship. And it's like, I can do the compatibilities. I can look at what's going to happen. I can see there's something called prajna, and it's amazing. And this is all coming from like Tajika astrology, and it's Persian astrology, where you can look at the astrology of a moment and know how that moment will unfold. And this will get into what happened when I met my twin flames, because I was already an astrologer then.
I want to understand so much more about this. So, are you Persian yourself?
Yes.
You are, okay. So it's interesting because yesterday I was babysitting my Persian friend's twins. She had twins, little babies, like 2 months.
Aww.
And that was cute. So I do love Persian history and music and food. So, and also you said Vedic as well, right? Which is obviously Indian. So
Yes.
what got you, COVID it sparked your interest. Was that the reason why you got into it then, or someone mentioned astrology, or how did you actually?
So I had always loved astrology, but I never formally studied it. And then when the pandemic hit, I had a friend who told me in 2019 that it was going to happen in 2020. And I was like, I didn't believe her, right? Because I was thinking, I didn't have a deep knowledge of astrology. I had a passing knowledge of it. And I didn't know it was so predictive. And then in March of 2020, I actually had COVID like right away. And I was like, I went to her and I was like, bitch, you knew this was going to happen. Like, I was like, what? So she's like, yeah, I knew. And so she taught me everything she knew, but she wasn't a professional. And I learned that, and that was all modern and Western astrology, and it wasn't enough for me. So I started like going deep, and I found my teachers. My teachers are Ernst Wilhelm and his school of astrology. It's all like online, and he does a fantastic job. But that's all Vedic astrology using the tropical zodiac. And then my other teacher, my one-on-one teacher, is Laura Barat, and she's just fantastic. 20 years of this. Once I started going into that route where they learn ancient astrologies, it really resonated with me. It was like my ancestry was coming alive. And so I then started to learn not just the Western or the modern, because the modern is actually not very powerful. It's the ancient techniques that are the most predictive. And so I started to learn those deeper techniques, and I was like blown away. I mean, people don't know that Vedic astrology essentially takes your birth chart and it breaks it up into all the different mathematical formulas, and it breaks out the dimensional charts. And there's all these dimensional charts that tell you about marriage, children, money, everything. And it's a chart within a chart within a chart. It's like fractals of the universe. And so when you start to see the web of the universe, you start to see all this intricacy in how one moment in time, if you dissect that one moment and you open it up, you can actually see the intelligence and how everything else will unfold. because every moment and every atom of the universe has everything, all the information of the rest of the universe. And you can actually see this mathematically when you start getting into the deeper, more esoteric, more when you start reading the Sanskrit. I mean, the formulas, you can have formulas for career astrology. For example, the reason I became an astrologer, like a serious one, was because my teacher ran the formula for an astrologer, and it was like boom, boom, boom. She's like, "You're not just an astrologer." She's like, "You're a powerful astrologer. And this is why, and here are the formulas." And it was so life affirming to be like, oh, I'm not like a pharmacist who doesn't like drugs my whole life. Because
that's interesting. So were you always drawn to that sort of field? Because you went from a very scientific, logical career, and astrology is essentially, it is very scientific and mathematical, like you're saying, but also it's quite spiritual, and some people don't believe it. So how did you navigate that difference? Were you always?
yeah. And it was like one of the hardest things ever, because I am very scientific. Even today, I'm very scientific. I spent last year, I was in a year 40, as I'll call it. I was in a year where I was investigating everything. And so everything that I would see, in social or whatever, and every conspiracy even, I was like, I'm going to look that up. And so I had already been awakened, but I went through this really weird phase where I wanted to look everything up and be factual about it, because my chart was leaning towards that. And so I did it. But so I haven't lost that sort of rigor, of scientific rigor. But I think what happened is I started to come into my psychic powers through leadership, because I have a master's in leadership. And I would read people. Oh, actually, I'll tell you what, even when I was post divorce and I was on dating apps and doing the 200 dates or whatever, I could see a person's photo and know how things would go.
But you still would go to see them on the date?
I would still go because I was testing it. I didn't know I didn't know I had these powers. So I would go and I would be like, I think, like I would look at the person and I would see like their traumas, and I would see what their issues were and how things would end. And then I would still go on the date and it would still happen. It took me forever to start trusting it.
Can you see that also in videos?
Yeah, I can just see and read energy. And even while I was in the corporate setting, because I was managing a large team, I would tell them, we have to do behavioral interviewing. When we interview, I had to interview a lot of people and hire them. And I expanded the team quite a bit. And so I would tell people and coach the other managers. I would say, okay, here's some videos on body language. Because I knew there was something I was reading, but I didn't know it was like full on energy. But I was trying to teach others this, because I said, you can't just go based off of what they say. We've had interviews where people have said all the right things, and I would come away from that interview and be like, that person is just a freaking black soul. Like, don't let them in, And then there's people who stumble and they're modest and they're, anxious. And I'm like, oh, the heart of that person, like, I really want to give them this job, And it was like I was coming away and saying, you have to see beyond what they're telling you. And that actually makes a good leader, because you can't really take things at face value.
So the reason why I ask you that question is because a lot of divine masculines out there tend to be very logical, very non-spiritual, reject the whole, twin flame label, and she's crazy, and why is she telling me this and that and the other. But I want to talk to you about what you felt, because you were analyzing the energy for COVID. You was also analyzing the energy. I want to know what's the current stuff that's going on, because for me, when COVID hit, I psychically knew that it was coming, and then I was working as a teacher, and I already told all my students and sorted everything in my house, and I was already prepared. I knew it was coming, and I knew what was going on. And then during COVID, actually, I was being attacked by dark entities, especially in
Oh shit.
the astral realm. But I'm not scared of any of these things. But
No.
it was very interesting to hear what your astrological take was about what happened during COVID and what's happening now.
Yeah, so I have a couple videos about this on my channel if folks want to delve into
So
that.
yeah,
And I'll actually stop and share that for a second. So if you want to find my social media links, just go to thecelestialu.com and all of my links are there. So if you want to find me, if you want to find out more about like the types of readings that I offer, it's all there. So go to there. But yeah, sorry, what was your question?
what was the energy from astrology? What did you figure out
Yes.
about COVID?
Okay, I'm going to have to high level this. So basically, the gist of it is our current structures are falling. And a lot of this came out at the time. Really, we're at the beginning stages of the Aquarian age and closing out the Piscean era from a large scale perspective. But even more critically now. So at that time, what was really, it was Pluto leaving, and these are actually modern planets. But I found that when Pluto was in Capricorn at the very end of Capricorn, that was the demolition of our capitalistic societies, and that was happening during COVID. This cusp of Pluto wanting to leave Capricorn and finally go into Aquarius and start our Aquarian age. So what was happening is everything in society, all the structures needed to be called into question, and the powers needed to be rattled around, and everything needed to dissolve. So we were going into a destruction phase of, and then also a revelation phase, because Pluto's all about revelations and transformations. So that was really what was happening. And now, fast forward, we've got Pluto in Aquarius. And Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for the next 2 decades. And as this happens, and it started in January of this year, actually. So all that preamble was just destruction and, revelations. Now, the revelations are going to continue because there's other reasons why we're having revelations. Pisces is being destroyed right now. Pisces is religion, lies, and government. So Saturn is in Pisces. Saturn's destructing and getting rid of. Saturn is elimination, actually. In the highest way, Saturn is getting rid of what isn't desired and what isn't spiritually pure. So it's like a purification of religion, philosophy, and the governments. And so we're going through this phase, and Saturn's going to remain there until mid 2025. And at that point, by then, we will have seen more and more revelations about the secret activities, the UFOs, all these things that we couldn't even imagine were real like decades ago are all bubbling to the surface. The CIA, the Antarctica, all this crazy stuff. It's going to continue. And then also our pop icons are being taken down. Everybody's being taken down right now.
Tell me who.
So, I don't know if you know, but Diddy, Puff Daddy, because I was a huge rap fan. Okay, so I grew up listening to Tupac, which might shock people because I don't look like maybe that type, but I loved hip hop dancing. I was really into this. And Tupac was a ballet dancer and more than likely gay, which is it's like not his persona. So he was play acting this persona, but he was also profound. He was a poet. Anyway, all of these profound artists, many of them were, we think, assassinated. and he was obviously killed. But there are reasons why, because he was encouraging people to wake up. His stepfather was a Black Panther, and so he was encouraging the inner city folks to just wake up to what the government was doing. And of course, they took him out. And so they're doing that. But now what's happening is the Illuminati pop figures like Jay-Z, Beyonce, and like all of these folks that are performing black magic and rituals in their even Coachella, like it's all rituals now. It's not even like.
Can you tell us a bit? Can you tell us a bit more about that? So you mentioned Jay-Z and Beyonce. What black magic rituals? What's going on?
So there's. I didn't imagine we were talking about this, but you can see them flashing the Illuminati triangle all over the place. They're, doing the devil horns. They're doing these symbols, but also their concerts are reflective of pictures of Baphomet and like these satanic rituals. Even Taylor Swift, who's much beloved, is doing like some sort of like circular things with globes and like very ritualistic type activities. So a lot of this is being exposed right now, and the Christians have become aware of it. So they're like, oh, this is satanic, and so they're coming against it. And it's good though, because they're kind of enlightened now during this period. These things will continue until mid-2025.
So why are they doing these sort of rituals? Because like Beyonce, for example, is very much into God, so she says. So what is the purpose of her doing the other thing?
I think her god is Lucifer. And Lady Gaga too. Lady Gaga straight up said it, like, in conversation. And so they worship the lower gods
to get fame. To get fame.
Yeah. So they're cutting a deal, selling their soul to the devil. It's basically because they think that Lucifer is the real God, and it's just so creepy. But
because a lot of their content has become very sexualized. I see with Beyonce, she used to be a very good Christian girl, and everything now she's completely naked. She looks like a porn star.
Oh, 100%. And there's like the most disturbing example is Doja Cat, where she's straight up painted as a demon now. It doesn't bother me because I have walked in the desert with the devil. Like I've done my dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
So it's like for me when I look at this stuff, I'm like, aren't you silly? You would go with a system that has to drain, like they basically suction the vampire, the energy off of their fans. And that's what they do in those rituals and those concerts.
Is it just in the concert? Is it just in the concerts, or also by listening to their music it happens?
Yeah, it's all over the place. Even the way they it's sad because it's the content, it's the vibration of their music, it's the lyrics, it's the symbology, it's everything is in support of this idea that we can't just tap into source energy, right? So we have to take other people's energy. And so they're doing things like that. And Diddy just got busted. The FBI raided his house. And he's been doing basically, they call him the Black Epstein. And he's been doing like sex trafficking and all of those things. And Hollywood is just completely lousy with this satanic bullshit.
So it's all going to come to the forefront.
Yeah. Well, it's like it comes to the point, you know what it's like? It's like once you start seeing it and you see the good ones, they will, they'll actually, they'll kill them sometimes, It's very sad. And it's a spiritual war. So, it's basically what's happening on a kind of global level is that humanity is coming into their power. We're going to overcome this servitude and indentured servitude that we have been in for thousands of years. And so as humanity rises and ascends, the ones that are using secondary methods of gaining their energy. So the primary method would be just downloading source energy, which is available to all. As long as you open your heart, you go through, you release your trauma, you can download, right? But if you're not going direct, then you have to parasite, you have to actually take it from other people. And so this parasitic cycles and the abuse of children and innocence and things like that, it's all coming to the surface and percolating up, especially because the sun is having more geomagnetic storms, and the sun is trying to up-level and bring us into the 12-strand DNA to activate us, to bring us to the next level. It's really the Christ consciousness. It's everything coming from within, and our ability to make the vertical journey and to transcend the third dimension. All of this is happening, but at the same time, the old guard is still, they're doing the death grasps or the death rattles or whatever. They're still trying to hang on. And so that's what it looks like. It's almost like they're losing power. So what they're doing is they're not concerned that they're doing it out in the open anymore because they're frantic.
And how does that work with twin flames?
Oh my God, twin flames right now are so dramatic. Like almost always, and from watching your videos as well, I've learned a lot, but because the twin, the 3D twin, is almost always going to be involved in these satanic, Luciferian kind of spirals, right? And then the other twin can just look at them and go, all you have to do is tap in and like acknowledge your trauma and like, what are you doing? Like, it's like nails on a chalkboard to the 5D twin, if you will, or the enlightened twin, if you will. And so it's particularly dramatic because the sun will come in and do another solar wave. And then even as an quote enlightened twin, right? I say this kind of facetiously because I'm like, I don't think of myself that way. I think of myself as struggling just like the rest of humanity. But there's this light that comes in, and every time we get another solar wave, and I also have a video about that.
And we had a solar wave on Monday, right? Because it knocked a lot of people out Tuesday,
we were
Wednesday,
having
Thursday.
a series of M-class solar waves in succession. And we even had a day last week where we had, I think, 4 M-class solar waves in 26 hours. That's
Monday or Tuesday.
Unheard of.
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday it was, because I was wiped out. I'm normally not wiped out, but I was wiped out for 3 days. Yeah.
Killed.
So what's it doing to us? What's it doing to twin flames? What does the blast do to the twin flame?
Yeah. So I know from my perspective, even though I'm quote the more spiritual twin flame, every time the flash comes, and I find this happening in shamans and healers and spiritual coaches and people are tapped in, right? Every time one of these comes, especially if you're empathetic, it's going to drum up residual cellular debris and cellular trauma. And so what that does is the light comes in and the crevices and the energies, the lower chakra energies they come up into our face to be witnessed and released every single time. And to the extent you've already done a lot of shadow work, it might be easier for some who've been awakened for a very long time. For me, I am in twin flame separation. I have been for a long time. So there still is that like raw, like abandonment complex that comes up every single time. and also other things, father wounds, etc. All of that is being witnessed. And so I'm like everybody else. I did this video about solar wave energies. There's nothing different about me just because I'm an astrologer. No, I still have to go all the way down and go all the way back up and all the way down and all the way back up. Like, I actually was thinking about this before I had this interview. I was like, how am I going to, I'm not an expert. I'm just a person who can see the patterns and has the esoteric knowledge, but I'm right along with the rest of humanity. Now, I think with the other twin, I think because they're putting up many of them, I don't know if all of them, I think when you encounter this light from a third dimensional perspective, and let's just say your heart chakra is not as open. So for me, my heart chakra is fairly open, and I have a little bit of gifts or abilities, right? So this energy just like hits me. It's very fast and it goes through, right? And I think when it hits the third dimensional twin, they are more barriered, they're kind of more constricted, because that's what it means to be third dimensional. It's more Saturnian, it's restricted. So a lot of times the way they cope with this is that energy will come through and they kind of just like, further constrict, right? Our training and spiritual folks, we know that when this energy comes in, we immediately say, this is not me, this is the energy. Like we start to pull ourselves back, look at the behavior, observe, blah, blah. We have these tools. They don't have the tools. So they're just like, I don't know why I'm agitated. I don't know why I'm getting angry or like they're experiencing this agitation. And it is affecting them, but it's also a choice, right? And so, many of them are like not wanting to acknowledge their own traumas, not wanting to acknowledge that there's a process at hand that they don't have control over. So it's a lot more resistance. And they can actually resist to the point where they're not integrating the light codes. So they're holding back their ascension.
And then does the universe or the solar blast or whatever it is push them to face that eventually?
Yeah, it does. But when they get bombarded by it and they have no tools, and like, let's just say people they're around are also third dimensional, everybody just kind of like, I'm going to pretend like I'm normal. And like, they're just all around kind of constricted, right? They go around kind of pretending it's not happening, even though they feel like shit and they don't know why. It's like a confusion, I would imagine. And I've only seen it because I can see people in my life who are third dimensional. Like I have a family member who's like super negative. Like she walks into the room and she's like a black hole. And it's funny. It's like my mother has had to be nice now because this other family member is so negative, and I see how it affects her. They're just completely irritated. They've never been like, if they're negative, they're becoming more negative. So I don't think that's the twin flame, but I do think there is this propensity to either evolve, no matter how hard it is. Like, we're so dedicated to spirituality. We're like, it's fine. I'm going to get through this, just do some more meditation. Like we have all these tools. We're like, accepting ourselves or doing all this stuff. And we do this, so we evolve, even though it's slow and annoying. They have the tendency to involute.
But then as the feminine evolves, isn't the masculine forced to mirror that evolution and do the work?
Yeah. I listened to a lot of your content and this story, right? This evolution. And I think it does, but knowing the astrology, I know that there are certain milestones in the masculine's chart and in the feminine chart that make it either easier or harder to accept or balance or neutralize the masculine, feminine extremes and come into some place of peace or neutrality, right? So I think in that sense, yes, they will. I think the masculine may be on a different timeline sometimes um, than the feminine. And like you said, it's like the feminine first and then the masculine typically. And I do think that's true, but it's like you can't rush the masculine. He has his own milestones that are entrenched in the planetary energies. So it's like if it's not time for him to fully wake up, then he's going to be like in this stage, and really you want him to be in this stage, and you're like, I can't even talk to him, I don't have anything in common with him, because he's not, he has to go through his stages as well. It's two people ultimately, and you can we'll probably, go ahead.
I think it's interesting how basically it's the planets that surround our solar system that are affecting our solar system, and it's not planets who are further afield. It's like, how does it all like work out? I don't understand the mathematical way. Is it like the more close proximity you are, the more impact it has of the planet or the moon or whatever it is? Is that how it works? Because who decides all the influential impacts?
The way I think about it, like, the modern planets are actually farther away, and the ancient planets that they could see with their eyes are closer to us. And so I actually think we see the effects more strongly of the ancient planets that we can see with our eyes, because there's direct, like, oh, that Mercury is like, it's almost going backwards, and I'm feeling like all discombobulated. Oh, now it's going forwards. Okay, I can go. I feel it going forwards now. But with the other planets, the modern planets that we only started seeing with telescopes, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, the outer three planets, they're actually telling us the inner story. So it's really interesting. It's almost like and they tell you the generational story. So it's a different level. And I think beyond that too, if you go beyond those planets, you go to the other stars, you're actually getting deeper, wider information. Whereas with the planets that we can see with our eyes, the closer planets,
it's more general.
You're getting more like the obvious stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about meeting your twin flame then. When did that happen?
Yeah. Okay. So I met my twin flame. It was December. Well, okay. I had known him professionally before this, but in December of 2021, he basically, there was a week there that I remember before this even happened. There was a week that I told my sister I was already practicing astrologer. And so I told my sister, this week I'm going to meet my future husband. That's what I told her, because that's what the astrology said. And I can get to that level. And then this twin came out. I had known him only professionally before that. 2 weeks prior, I did an astrology reading for him, and I read his chart. And then after that, he came and said, I'm obsessed with you. That same week that I was supposed to, quote, meet my...
some people say in the chart, you see the initial of your twin flame. Is that true?
The initial, yeah. I can see, there's so much you can see, but in my story, in my chart, I could see when I was going to first meet my, quote, partner or husband. And it was down to like, I was able to get it down to like the week.
He said he's obsessed with you. Then what happened?
So he comes out and says, I'm obsessed with you ever since you read my chart. And I was like, okay, I like literally had no idea, which is funny because I usually can read people, but I wasn't interested in him. And I wasn't interested in him because the way he was so distorted and didn't have confidence. And the type of man that I like is kind of stable and outdoorsy and confident, and a lot of Aries attributes actually is what I typically go for, and that's all in my chart. And he was coming across timid and no confidence, and I was just like, and he was also like, he was blonde, and I'd never dated a blonde before. It was like the most bizarre thing. And he came out and said this stuff, and I really liked him professionally, but I had never like thought about him that way. And so he comes across like this, and I was like, this is so crazy. And I just said, well, I don't know what to do, because he was essentially he was in a marriage at the time. And so I said, I think first of all, like, why are you getting obsessed with me? Don't you have like a partner? And don't you have to deal with whatever it is? And he's like, yeah, that's not going well. And I thought that was funny. And he goes, and it turns out, actually, very sadly, that he was in an abusive relationship where the woman was abusing him.
And this was you met him in 2021, was it? Or
uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, this has been going on for way too long. And so he goes, yeah, my relationship is really bad. And I said, well, maybe that's what you should focus on. And I tried to tell him right then and there, I was like, I'm a real person. Like, I have problems, and I may be an astrologer who's able to see the potential in you and encourage you and inspire you and all of that. But I'm a real person. I'm not someone you should just like obsess about, as a escape for your problems, But then after I got off the phone with him, I was like, oh my God, this is the week I said I would meet my person, and then this guy shows up, and I'm like, this makes no sense. So I looked at the astrology. I already had his chart, and I just did the compatibility because I was very curious. And I looked at it, and I swear to God, it was like God painted it. It was beautiful. It was like.
Is this what you see in all twin flames charts?
I actually haven't. And that was one of the things I was like, maybe I'll get to read Manny's chart. I haven't seen any twin flame charts.
I'm more than happy to share share with you stuff later so we can have a look.
Yeah. I would love to, because I just know from mine that it was like two sides of the coin.
Do you need to know their time of birth as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the info. So it was like this. The chart was like, if I can explain it, it was like a fit. Everything was balanced, and there was fate, and there was intrigue, and there was like everything was like, it was a super sexy but also complimentary chart. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is my thought was like, this guy with this. I was just like this. I was just like, so I was just asking. So I pulled my tarot cards, and I was like, is it possible that this person is my future husband? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, what? Get out of freaking town. This is a disaster. He's married to someone else. I've never been attracted to someone who acts this way. He seems like he has a lot of problems. I am at the height of my, self-confidence. I was like, I stepped down from my job. I was doing a ton of astrology readings. I was feeling good about myself. I felt like I achieved, right? And then this comes, and man, it just sucked after that. It just got worse and worse and worse. It was my spiritual team, I think, telling me yeah, there's going to be delays with this. But that's all I got out of them. But they were like, but we really think you should help him. And I was like, okay, like this is crazy, but okay. So I did try to help him. Nothing happened. It took him 3 months went by, like nothing happened. And so then but I would see him professionally, and like, I just knew he wasn't happy, and I didn't know a lot about him. And so I kind of just encouraged him to still get out of the abusive relationship. And I, but I also didn't want to overstep his free will, even though I like knew all of this crazy stuff. But at some point, I did tell him that we were twins. Like,
How did you find out you were twin flames?
just reading the chart, like it was just like, it was like nothing I've ever seen. It was insane. And I can't really even tell you because I haven't seen that many what I would call true twin flame charts, but there's a quality of like opposites attract, but there's also a quality of like similarities in there, and there's a quality of fate being involved, like the nodes are involved. And it's just, if it's good, it has the potential to be really good. And it seems like if it's bad, it has the potential to be really bad. And so it's different than other people's charts. Sometimes other people's charts will have planets touching, conjoined in the same areas, or they'll have opposites attract, but they typically don't have like so much balance in terms of this person plus this person becomes balanced. The whole chart kind of works, the two charts work together. That's what I think.
As one chart, yeah.
And I really like to see yours, but so I could get more experience. And because most of the time, the compatibilities I've seen, I wasn't getting that. I've never seen this before.
So you knew about the term twin flames before? Yeah.
I knew about it, but I thought it was just romantic.
Yeah,
and it
same.
turned out to be like the exact opposite of romantic to me.
So what was the journey after that? You told him and then he ran, or what happened?
Yeah, I told him, and I'm sure he thought I was crazy. And then he ran, but then 3 months later, okay, I'll tell you what happened. 3 months later, I was writing in my journal one night, getting a lot of feels for some reason, but nothing had happened. And all of a sudden, I just felt this pain in my chest, in my heart. And it was like, all of a sudden, and by the way, I wasn't dating anyone. I hadn't dated anyone in so long. And like, I'm getting this like pain in my chest. And then suddenly I start writing in my journal about how my heart is broken. And my heart is breaking, and it's like intense stuff. And I'm writing it out and crying. And I'm like, I don't know why this is happening. I'm not with anyone. So the next day, I talked to him, and he actually broke it off, and I was feeling his heartache. And that was the first time where I realized
he left his wife.
Yeah. And that was the first time that I realized that there was a connection there that I had never had before, because my heart broke when his heart broke. And so it was really intense. And then after that, I went to a shaman. I asked questions because he was still like not wanting to engage or anything. And I got it. I mean, he was getting a divorce. So I was like, okay. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I was like, oh, but he's like your partner. So you should probably like have some contact with the guy, And like, then, what ended up happening is I went to a shaman and asked her to divine for me information. And the shaman said, yeah, if you choose him, he will love you like a puppy dog. And I said, I love dogs. So I was like, I guess like, I was like, that's kind of cute. Like, I was like, okay. Well, long story short, it turns out that he actually, what the shaman didn't say is that this would be extremely delayed, extremely, like years delayed. And also, what they didn't say is that he has massive trauma. He has massive addiction problems to the point where it's like pretty scary. And so they didn't say that. I found that out many, many months later. And I still, but by then, the connection with us had grown so much, like even distance, I actually hadn't ever seen him before. Like I at that point never seen him. I'd only worked professionally with him. And so it was bizarre, but what ended up happening is he went through, I guess, a lot of tumult, a lot of issues, and I could feel them all. I was like connected in this really savage way where I was like, I basically went through Dark Night of the Soul off his coattails and just like, and like it was because I couldn't alchemize it. I could change everything to good, but I couldn't change this to good. I couldn't. It was like out of my control. And so I was getting to the point where I didn't want to do this. You know, I fought it. It was worse. I got hijacked by entities. I was talking to the devil, like everything was like, you know, just this crazy, like dark energy and then after I got out of that, I went into bouts of depression, and it was just crazy. At the very end, what happened is he signed his divorce in like December of 2022, and I ended up saying, I know. By then, I knew he had the extent of his problems, and I thought I had been lied to and deceived by God. That's what I thought. But I was like, he invited me to go to a cabin with him. And I was like, well, I probably shouldn't do this, but screw it. Let's just find out what happens.
Yeah, test out. Was this the first time you were meeting him physically?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was insane. So I went to the cabin and it was fantastic. Like it was like
magical.
Yeah, he said magical. Yeah. And it was kind of like two people meet and there's this calm that happens.
Yes.
And it was all calm, but then towards the end he started to like pull away and I was like, what are you doing? Like, and I'm like, my energy's like getting really lacking in confidence towards the end. And I left, and then he completely like didn't even like, he was pretty rude. Like he didn't call to see if I got home okay. Like I just started getting really offended and angry. It's like, what the hell is this?
He got very triggered. Something came up for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I know what that is. Like I was able to see in him his trauma. And I actually said it like in the middle of all this. I was like, oh, you have this going on, you know? And it was because of me. So this whole thing didn't work out after that because I was like, oh, this is scary, you know? And I pulled completely back. So if you talk about running and chasing, like there was a lot of that. And I just kind of said, no, I can't do this. And I like backed away. And then long story short, he kind of got worse and started acting out in weird ways and addictive tendencies. And he essentially got to the point where he sabotaged everything.
Typical.
Yeah. And then since then, there's been like, and then a year went by after that. And I tried to talk to him. Last time I actually spoke to him was in October. And he was still doing all these things, the third dimensional garbage. And we had a conversation, and I kind of wanted to have a conversation to like heal things. I really wanted to like, I felt like so unresolved, even though so much time had gone by. And I wanted to like, I've always wanted to like create harmony out of this. And it's been one of those things I can't do, like I can do with so much other stuff. And so I asked him, like, let's just talk and everything. But he came at it, and I think he called me and he was inebriated or whatever, and he was not. But we had a conversation nonetheless, and he was like, I moved closer to you so I could be with you. And I'm like, but you're like still doing this stuff. Like you're not even clear of mind. And then it was also him saying like, well, I just want you in my life. And I'm like, this is very sweet, very nice. And my heart goes out to him. But at the same time, I just explained to him that, look, you're in this dimension and I'm in this dimension. Like the way that you're acting and what you're doing, like, I don't understand it. I'm not attracted to it. And like, I said, like, I really want you to be well, but I don't understand even why you like me, because like we had this conversation, and I was trying to tell him like, these are the things that are happening. And he's like, you're a conspiracy theorist, you know? And I was like, well, yeah, that's right. And so if I am, why are you interested in me? Like, just let it go.
So what is the what's currently situation with you?
Yeah. So after this point, after I told him like, look, we're not speaking the same language, we're in a different place in life. I haven't talked to him. I did message him more recently, because I do know that in my chart for year 41, I just turned 41. I do know that this is the year that I need to change with regard to relationships. And I know that he's a part of that. And so what I really want for this year is, it's not, I have a situation where I never really felt like this was my idea of love, because I had a soulmate relationship before this, and it really was love. It was light, it was fluffy, it was like wonderful. It was like, he was so giving. I could be a feminine. He was so masculine. Like, it was so good in that way. And it was so effortless. And then this was just like torture, like the whole time. Plus I went through dark night. Like, I was like, what the hell is this? And so my solution, because I do think our timelines are so different, like his timeline and mine, was to have that long separation. And even right now, I'm in separation, but just knowing that it is going to come back this year. And I know kind of the timelines of those. I've just been in preparation for, like, even watching your channel was me being like, okay, I gotta do this now. Like, it's coming back, like.
It's interesting because you said in the chart that you balance each other, and even though we kind of look at them and think, they balance us in the 3D. They do, because we balance them, and we get too spiritual and we have to kind of merge, and they are actually showing us all the parts of ourselves that we're denying or running away from.
Yeah, I remember one thing he said once is like, when we did meet, and then I lost my confidence at the end because I could feel him like retracting. He later told me, he was like, you need to have more confidence in yourself. I'm like, the fuck? So like, you're going to
tell me
this, and then you're going to tell me, and then you're going to tell me like, well, you should just have more confidence. But he's right. Or like, even our last conversation, he was like, you're depressed. And I'm like, And then I said, yeah, like later I was like, yeah, I do have elements of depression now. I never did before I had awakened, but then I have times of depression now. And then he's right about that. It's very annoying.
They know you very well. So what services do you provide then? So apart from, you provide astrology readings basically, and for I have like quite a bit of a following going on TikTok and Instagram. So basically what you've mentioned is you can read people's timelines and see whether they are twin flames to an extent, and then really show the roadmap, right? About what's going to happen in a way.
Yeah, there's a roadmap. This is what they call divine timing. Sometimes divine timing is not divine to us. And so it feels like, oh, God, it's so slow, or like we're in this stagnant or whatever. But actually, a lot of the milestones, if not all of them, are in the chart. And I wanted to actually talk to you maybe another time about the difference between fate and free will, because I still do believe in free will, even though I'm an astrologer.
Because I've come across the term divine will, which is probably fate. Divine will versus free will.
Yeah, and there's a lot to that. So there's like a dharma, and there's which is your divine path, and that's more like the divine will. And then there's just fate, which is really a correction that happens with the nodes to snap you back into your path if you're off path, or elicit fated events. It's very, but this whole mechanism of fate is very, the more your vibration is low, the more you're impacted by fate alone.
Yeah, and I think that happens to the divine masculines. They get pushed all around.
Yes, like they're not at the helm of their ship. They're not actually steering. They're just getting like thrown around, which is really shitty. Like I would never want to be a divine masculine. I have a ton of compassion for them.
But then why don't they just listen?
I think what it is like there's a stubbornness to them, at least for mine, that they have the illusion of control.
Yes.
Because that's what the lower chakras and the lower energies and the lower vibrations do. That's what the Saturnian energy does. It restricts you, it cages you, and yet it makes you feel as though you are in control. And you could definitely come to an astrologer like me, and I can help you at least plan in a way that liberates you, saying, okay, this is not happening now. I thought it was going to happen, but when should I tune back into this? And how shall I best use the energies of this year to kind of anchor myself or have the best experience? Because really, there are milestones that you cannot avoid. These are aspects of your life that you yourself pre-planned. The contracts, like I could never sever my tie with the twin, even though I've wanted to so many times. I can't do that. That's not allowed, because we wanted to go through this. We wanted this evolution. We chose this, right? But so you'll know if you do get a reading, you'll know the timeline and the opportunity windows for you to do certain things. Like here's a window for you. Here's another window. And then your free will comes in to the extent that you're doing your inner work, that you can kind of come up to a certain level that even though a timed event is coming, like how do you experience that event? How do you deal with that event? It's really about the vertical journey. Because a lot of times you literally cannot avoid these events.
So you're at the front of the ship watching it and maybe steering a little bit, but it's just the ship's still going to go forwards rather than being dragged on the
right. Or like you work with me and I go, okay, this is when it's happening. And so what we could do is we could say, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go into this, as a friend of mine just recently told me, and she's a double Leo, and I needed to hear the Leo perspective. I needed to hear the person who can just manifest or like go into something. She's like, be bold, like just go into it, just like do it, you know, take it back. This is not you of being a victim. Just go into it, do what you need to do, like know that you can like deal with it. I needed that Leo perspective. I needed her to be like, and then she also said something that was just blew my mind. It was this thought that you need to bring your child self into it. Like you need to have some play and not take it so seriously, because we, the spiritual, get so
make too much of it. Yeah, make too much of it.
Yeah. And then that's not it though. This is a kind of pre-orchestrated.
It's a dance.
Yeah. It's a what?
It's like a dance.
It's a dance, but it's a choreographed dance in some cases. But it's like you can do the motions, like I can do this dance right here, right? And I can have a shitty time doing this, or I could just be like, oh, let's just go with it. Like go into it and like let it throw you around a little bit and just kind of
embrace it. Embrace it, yeah.
Embrace it. Yeah.
Ida, we could talk for hours.
I know.
I feel. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 at some point, maybe with my chart. I don't know. We'll see. But thank you so much. And people can contact you on thecelestialu.com. I'll put the description in the chat, and also any of your social media links. If you could send them over to me, we'll put them in.
Okay.
But thank you very much, Ida.
It was so my pleasure. I really enjoyed this. And thank you for what you do. And I've really enjoyed learning from you. And yeah, I mean, thanks for also providing people a safe space to go through a pretty tumultuous and difficult time. That's so important, that we have people who are like transparent, that we're not saying like, yeah, I've got it all figured out and I'm so spiritual that it doesn't touch me. No, actually, like what you're saying is like your free flow is telling them like moment by moment, like this is how it feels. Because that's important. I don't like the idea like, or the thought that I have to come in like, do this or do that. No, it's more kind of like, look, like I'm like opening my heart to you that this is really how it is, and you're not crazy, and everybody's journey is a little bit different, but we're in it with you. Like it's not a separation. We are all in this. And if I'm having a hard time, or if you're having a hard time, or if someone that comes to you for help is having a hard time, it's the way forward as we go into the era of Aquarius is that we are in unity consciousness. If you're hurting, I'm hurting, and I want to show you. And I don't want to have an ego or a spiritual ego or whatever about it, because that's just not it. That's not how we get through.
So the rawness, maybe you feel the pain in my videos, but the rawness is there, isn't it?
It is. And actually it's inspiring. Like that, why I was watching it is I was inspired by you coming forward and like just letting it all hang out and like just, okay, this is what it is. This is what it is. Because all this time I can talk about astrology and advise people, and yet I'm not really ever discussing what I'm going through. So probably this video will be the first time that I like say like, hey, like this is what I'm going through.
I just wonder what my DM thinks when he looks at me. He probably thinks, why is he wearing a shawl? And he looks crazy.
I like it. I was like, it's almost like, and now we're going to be in spiritual hour. Like, you know, and just like put yourself shawl on.
Sit down and meditate.
I love it.
Thank you very much.
I super enjoyed it. I think I just resonated with your energy and your authenticity, and you're like, hey, God damn it, I'm going to put a shawl on. I'm going to put some crystals in front of me, and we're going to figure this out together. I don't know what I'm going to say. It's just going to come out. I love it.
Thank you very much. It's been a great interview. Ida, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you.